There's something about covering an election that is very important to lean into where we live. And so we always make sure that we have good coverage for you as a Manitoban as you prepare to vote as well. Because in just under 5 weeks, all of us in Canada will decide who will run the country. And some are already saying this election in particular has a lot riding on it. Everything from tariffs, the economy, homelessness, the ongoing housing crisis, and then, yes, the price of groceries. It's all on the table. So what does it mean for us here from a Manitoba perspective? Which party best would address the concerns and serve your needs? So I have 3 guests who are here in studio to help us figure that out this morning, and in fact, in the weeks ahead. All of them are political veterans. All of them are political junkies. All of them are devoted Manitobans. In fact, they've held office. They are our partisan panel for this election leading up to the vote on April 28th, and I'm thrilled to introduce them this morning. You'll know their names. Dorothy Dobbie is here, former Conservative MP for Winnipeg South and a former parliamentary secretary. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for being with us.
Hey, it's fantastic.
Also in studio, Erin Selby, former NDP MLA for Southdale here in the city, that riding. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
And Dan Vandal, at least until April 28th, is the Liberal representative for St. Boniface, St. Vital. So really great to have you with us.
Good morning, Marcy.
So let's get started, Dan Vandal. Let me start with you.
Yep.
We'll go around the table here. You're in your final weeks as a federal MP for the Liberal Party here. But as you prepare to hand over the reins, what's the number one issue for you in this election? What do you think is the, as we like to say, ballot box question?
Well, clearly, the number one issue is who is best suited to deal with the United States and Donald Trump. We know that we live in really dangerous times. We know that for some reason or another, Donald Trump is completely aligned with Vladimir Putin. We know Pierre Poilievre idolizes Donald Trump. He walks like him. He talks like him. He insults like him. And Trump has started a trade war with Canada, and he's been doing it for a few months. And clearly, we need someone who's well versed in economics, someone who's an adult in the room that can sit down with the president of the United States and other nations, such as in Europe and other democracies around the world, and build a coalition and make sure he can defend Canadians' rights going into the future.
Of course, I'll let you respond because Pierre Poilievre has been brought up, and I know you probably want to. But I do want to ask you, Dan Vandal, one more question here. Why is it different this time around? Like when you think of what's at stake in this election, does it feel different to you compared to all your other years in office?
It feels different because we know Trump has always he's mused about tariffs before, and we were able to negotiate the new NAFTA agreement, which was, in his words, the best agreement ever. And it's not good anymore. And now he's talking about Canada's sovereignty and making Canada a 51st state, something he's been doing for months and months. And he does it on to international audiences. He does it to Canadians. I really think there is a sinister plan that Donald Trump has. I don't think it's shared by many Americans. But we need an adult in the room that can deal with Donald Trump and not somebody who's got backdoor far right-wing channels into the Trump administration.
Dorothy Dobbie, as a Conservative, I mean, I'll get your take on what Dan Vandal has said about what kind of leader we need here. But what's your take on the thinking that Trump and the threat of America right now to the sovereignty, is that the biggest issue for you? Do you think that's the ballot box question?
Not for me. I think that we really need to have options for trade, which we've been ignoring for the last number of years. And Canada has been living for a long, long time off the low-hanging fruit in the United States. It's time we grew up, put on our big boy pants, and get out there and deal with the world. We've become lazy and fat, and it's time to get moving. Trump's going to do what Trump's going to do. We can't really stop him. Who knows what he means, because he says something different every single time. But I think we really need to get out there and start looking for new markets and marketing Canada.
What do you think then is the ballot box question?
I think it's about the economy. I think it's about having the economy grow. We're at the bottom of the heap right now. The U.S. has grown 10 times faster than we have. And if we don't deal with this, we're going to get poorer and poorer. There's just not going to be any hope for our kids.
What do you say to Dan Vandal saying, I think he said it a few times, so I'll quote it, we need an adult in the room, and, talking about, that Pierre Poilievre may not be the right person to face down Trump, because whether you think it's a top issue or not, that obviously is still, an issue to many.
For Trump, I think it's a question of preference, and he'll make his own decision about who he likes and who he doesn't. I mean, he doesn't know. I don't know if he knows Carney, but he certainly doesn't know Pierre. And I guess we'll see. That time will tell. But I think Pierre's perfectly capable of taking on Trump and handling his own. He's a smart guy. He's intelligent, he's thoughtful, he listens, and he tries to determine what the answer should be instead of just repeating stuff he's heard from someone else.
I know you guys are going to want to respond directly to each other soon, but I want to make sure I get around the table at least once with a couple of questions. So, Erin Selby, from your perspective and the perspective of the NDP, what's number one at the ballot box?
I agree with Dan that it's the Trump question, it's tariffs, and the question's going to be who's going to help the average person weather that storm. Because I think Dorothy's right, it's coming whether we want it to or not. I'm not sure that we can stop it, but I want a party like the NDP that's going to think about regular working people and how are they going to get through what the tariffs could do to our economy.
How in tough will the NDP be this time around? What kind of challenges do you foresee in this election campaign?
I think there's always a challenge of not having formed federal government. People are a little bit hesitant, especially right now. But I think people just need to see all the things that we were able to accomplish that we pushed the Liberals into doing because they needed our support. And it was all things to help people. It was more housing. It was dental care for people. It was no scab legislation, things that help average working people. And that's what we need to focus on with the tariffs coming, with the economy. We don't know what's going to happen with it, but it is going to affect the average person.
Dorothy, what do you say to those who continue to compare Poilievre to Trump?
That's just silly. It's really silly. It just makes me giggle because there's absolutely no truth to it.
But he says the exact same words. He parrots everything Trump
says. They're conservatives. I guess they use similar phrasing, but it has nothing to do with his feeling about him.
I don't know. Dan said walks and talks like it. I agree with him on that one.
Well, you can agree. That's fine. But by the way, and you're talking about the working people and how much they want to, be able to get jobs and so on. Did you notice that the Boilermakers endorsed Mr. Pierre Poilievre yesterday?
Well, QP endorsed us. So.
Yes, but I'm saying that you're not getting all of the working people because they are looking for an economy that will grow and will give them jobs, and jobs are the kids.
So Dan Vandal wants in on this.
Yeah, we've all seen over the last several years how Pierre Poilievre has memed Donald Trump word for word, whether it's the far right, or the far left intelligentsia, whether it's you name it. He
supporting
repeats
the convoy.
The convoy. Pierre Poilievre was giving coffee to the truckers in Ottawa at the same time as Donald Trump was saying, "I love the convoy people. The truckers are doing a great job."
So I just want to lean into this for a moment, only because Dorothy, you're saying a big deal. So you tell me your lens on that.
Well, he took coffee out to them the first time when they first arrived. By the way, I watched the whole thing. The cops were getting the streets ready for the truckers. They had a bunch of hangers-on who were bad news, and nobody can control that. When there's a protest, that happens. But so Pierre took the time to go and talk to them. That's what the Prime Minister should have done. He ignored them. He pretended they didn't exist. And that was a huge mistake because he should have gone and spoken to these guys.
Supporting people's right not to wear masks in a pandemic?
What do you need to know?
That's a big deal.
I lived in Centertown for 10 years, Dorothy.
I'm not going to get into the whole argument.
The truckers were honking their horns 24 hours a day.
Yes, and it took a 24-year-old girl.
And yet they were saying this is a peaceful demonstration. People who lived in the area, including me, could not sleep for 24 hours.
We're not going to stay too long on the convoy, but Dorothy, you can respond here.
It took a 21-year-old girl to file an injunction so that stopped at night. And the mayor didn't have a clue. The Prime Minister didn't have a clue. So, what more can I say?
On the economy, I'm going to shift us there. Why are the Conservatives, in your view, the best, Dorothy, to move Canada forward?
Because I think they have a plan for jobs in the economy, and I think that's what we need right now. If we don't have a strategy to get Canada back to work, we won't have. It doesn't matter how much money you pour into the economy. If it's not growing, that's just money down the tubes. And sooner or later, there's nothing left. You have to have resources. And that comes from exploiting our resources, Dan, not, saying we've got to keep our oil locked up and our gas locked up when people are burning coal in Asia because we send coal to them instead of, natural gas, liquid LNG. And open up our borders to get the goods out of Canada that we have as resources
We're
here.
the only country in the G7 that has a free trade agreement with all G7 countries. We have the lowest debt to GDP out of all G7 countries. And over the last 5 years, we've created more jobs than any 5-year period in Canadian history. We've invested billions of dollars
Yes,
in
you
the
have,
new
and that's a big
economy,
mistake.
in the new economy, the new green economy, and that's something that's not going away.
I will ask this, though, for an average voter out there, an average person listening who feels, even when they're looking, I'm not necessarily bringing us back to the threat conversation, but the lens of the threat conversation comes to the economy, because you may have someone listening who's trying to inform their vote and they're thinking, wow, I do feel like Canada's a bit weaker than I would like right now. And we do need to sort of figure out how to strengthen up and bolden up and be, how self-sufficient are we? And they might be wondering why the Liberals for 10 years didn't strengthen that. Where would you see, what would you say to that concern?
I would say to that, we've invested significantly in new initiatives to create jobs. As I said, we've created more jobs in the last 5 years than any previous 5-year Canadian history. We've introduced the Canada Child Benefit, which has lifted 500,000 kids out of poverty, something that's never been done in Canadian history. We've introduced the Canada Dental Plan with the support of the NDP. We've introduced the school foods program. We're introducing the dental program, which has provided benefit to 40,000 Manitobans as I speak. And if you talk to Pierre Poilievre, he'll say the program does not exist. If that's not Trumpish, I don't know what is. So he's basically denying reality. 40,000 Manitobans have benefited from the dental benefit.
4 minutes to 8 o'clock. We're going to get a couple more questions in here. I want to ask you, Erin, for, in terms of the NDP, I already asked how you think that they could maybe break through here, but we know that really it's going to be a very difficult task, a challenging one. Do you have a sense on, the polls are looking, I know that's early, there's going to be a million polls, I get that, but the polls are looking at a close race between the Liberals and the Conservatives right now. How challenging would it even be for the NDP to form government, or how conflicting is it even to be an NDPer right now when you look at sort of what the country might need in this moment?
We know what the country needs in this moment. We need affordability for average people, and which is the party that you trust on that? That's us. We don't worry about how millionaires are going to make it through, how people with trust funds are going to survive. We worry about how people are going to be able to pay for their groceries. And I think people know that's what the NDP will do. They worry about working class people. How are you going to afford to go to the grocery store? How are you going to afford to feed your kids, to clothe your kids, and hopefully have a little more left over at the end of the day?
Where do you guys think the money comes from? It doesn't come from the air. It comes from taxpayers. And they're up to here because you spend the money that they give you, and you spend it on all sorts of things that don't do anything productive for the community. Yes, I agree.
Don't do anything productive.
Dental care is probably
I don't
a good
know.
thing to keep.
Bob Canute's government
Just
has
wait.
a 64%
Don't do anything
approval rate
productive.
right now.
But
I think
40,000
people are
people
feeling pretty
getting
good
dental
about what
care.
he's
No,
doing.
that is not productive. That is not producing more wealth so that you can afford these things. If we don't do that, we can't afford it. I'm not against social programs. I'm not some sort of
You want trickle-down economy?
I'm not
Is that
some
what we're
sort
looking
of far
for?
right-wing idiot. I think that we have to look after each other, but we have to have the resources to do it. And you can't get that by just spending.
Last two quick questions here, and remember, you're on every week, so we'll have lots of time to really dig into these details. But I do want to ask, in terms of what do the Conservatives have to do to pull ahead of the Liberals, given that it's so close, Dorothy, in your view?
I think they have to stay the course. I think that it's very interesting because when we go out and knock on doors right now, we're finding that young people are supporting Conservatives, whereas the older people are still interested in Carney, I guess, because they don't know
Which course
who
do
he
they
is.
stay on, Dorothy? The
Well,
one
I
where
don't
they
know.
line up with Trump, or
Can you
now where they
predict it?
say, I'm nothing like Trump?
You guys,
Which course?
is that all you've got is Trump? If that's all you've got, then you're in
That is
trouble.
all. That is all your party has been for the last few years: is attacking people, insulting people, and parroting Trump.
Last word's going to go to Dan Vandal here. I want to ask you how what Carney needs to do to differentiate himself, in your view,
I think
from the last 10 years of Liberals and from Trudeau.
Mark Carney needs to be a steady voice, a steady hand. This is really his first real race, and it's a big one.
It is a big
won the
one.
Liberal nomination. He needs to be a steady hand. He needs to share some good policies that are going to benefit working class Canadians and ordinary people.
We are on every week with our partisan panel. Thank you all for being here. For the Conservatives, Dorothy Dobbie; for the NDP, Erin Selby; and Dan Vandal for the Liberals. Thank you.
My pleasure.